Welcome back to the best weight loss podcast in the world. We have a fun one for you today, folks. I am here. You are here, John.
I'm here.
The Italian stallion himself.
How you doing?
John Arpino.
How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? How you
How
doing?
are you doing? I'm doing great, man. And you got, of course, the fatty daddy himself, Danny Mabley, who is on a journey to not be the fatty daddy anymore. Eventually, I'm just going to be daddy.
Is that what we're gonna do? Or are we just gonna call you daddy? I don't know how I feel about that.
Fatty, for sure. I'm even starting to get there now where I'm like, I think this fatty thing is kind of like
Yeah.
run its course. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And like, I'm gonna be the sexy daddy, and the great daddy, as in like being a great dad. You know what I mean? Anyways, we have a fun one for you today. We are going to be talking about something that both of us experienced in different ways. So I think it's going to be cool to talk about. But weight regain, not only something that I think everyone on a weight loss journey fears in the back of their mind, but it also is one of the most tough things to do in life in general. Is like everyone can kind of lose weight, but very few can keep it off. And I've experienced this. You've experienced this in some sense.
Yep.
And so we're going to chat about it and we're going to get into it. So for me, to start off, let's just kind of focus on the mental first, because then we can get into physical more. But like mentally, like it's crazy because when I first started, like I was like losing the weight, and your mindset kind of goes from, oh, there's a potential of regain, of course, right? But then along the way, you're like, no, like if I'm doing this, I can just do this forever, right? But there's that shift that happens where you start to get like annoyed or bored of like the consistency, or, things, the way you're losing the weight isn't something that you want to do forever, and it gets more difficult as you go. Have you kind of experienced that along your initial journey?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, also, it's a little different because going the bariatric route, there's always that thought in the back of your head that one, you're not going to be able to do it even with surgery. And then two, it's like you hear all these horror stories of people having like massive regains that you almost white knuckle the journey at first because you're so afraid that that's going to be you. But even before the bariatric surgery, I've always experienced weight gain because I've done every fad diet under the sun before I decided to have bariatric surgery, So like I lost 50 pounds with Weight Watchers and then gained it all back. So I've definitely lived with regain, and it's a shitty feeling. Unfortunately for a lot of us, it's almost like an ultimate destination that kind of happens on these journeys. And it's how do we avoid massive regain? Because I think that there's a difference between, okay, you've lost 100 pounds or you've lost 200 pounds and you regained 20 pounds, than, thinking that 25 pounds or 20 pounds when you've already lost 100 is like this super duper regain and it's the end of your life type of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. And I think that like, what people have to remember too is like, yeah, there's that potential for regain, small or large,
right?
And at the end of the day, though, like it's about focusing on what you can do to change that, right?
Yeah.
The reason regain happens for the most part, and I'm going to get into kind of something that people don't talk about, but the first of it is like what you're doing, you really can't do forever, right? So like the closer you can get to eating in a way that makes you feel the best, that you can do every day and not hate your life, like that is what's going to be able to make the potential of not regaining weight easier and more likely.
Correct.
Because like kind of like just being in the gym, like if you go to the gym and you gain all this muscle, you look great, you're feeling great. If you stop going to the gym, you're not going to have that muscle anymore.
Correct.
Right? People think of weight loss as something different, but it's not. Weight loss is a direct result of the nutrition you're putting in your body.
Absolutely.
So as soon as you stop doing that and you go back to old habits, or even you're not going back to old habits, but maybe you just increase your intake, all of a sudden your body's going to change because it's not doing what it took to get you to that place that you are.
Mm-hmm.
So not only do you have to think about what am I going to do to get there, but then what am I going to do to sustain that? And that becomes easier when, like, I remember trying to sustain like 175 pounds.
Yeah.
Like that to me, I was like, oh, I look good, I feel good. But it was extremely difficult because I was very lean. Like 175 me is like is pretty significantly lean. And so the calories that I needed to maintain that were maybe like 2,000 to 2,500 with the activity I was doing at that time. Now that'd be different now because I'm more active, surprisingly.
You're more active now than then.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. I wasn't playing any sports then.
Yeah.
I was literally just working out in cardio. But now, like, I play, like, pickleball or basketball, like, multiple times throughout the week. Yeah. But, like, you have to think, too, like, so the body weight you want to achieve, like, a lot of people make their goal body weight something that they just, like, look, like, what am I going to look like, right? But you have to think, like, what can I sustain realistically?
Yeah.
Right? Like, sustaining, for me, a 225-pound body, am I going to look the best and feel the best I could ever? No. But am I able to do the things I love to do? Do I feel any soreness, or do I feel any, like, do I have any health markers that are off? Do I look good enough that I feel good and I feel good about myself? Right. That's where my sustained weight loss my target's going to be, because that's going to be much easier for me to maintain with the amount of calories I can intake and the amount of activity I need to do to maintain that than it is if I was, let's just lose another 50 pounds because, I'll look better. But then what's it going to take to actually keep that?
Right. Mm-hmm. And then bottoming yourself out and leaving yourself there for so long, it creates worse habits, right? Because then you find yourself in a place of, at least for me, that's where the binging comes into play. That's when the sneak eating comes back. That's when all the disgusting habits that we thought we threw away and we broke all of a sudden rear their head out again, and all those problems become real life problems again.
Yeah. And also, like, if your goal is let's say 180, and I'm talking obviously just me as an example.
I was going to say, because me at 180 is bad. Me at 180 would be terrible.
Yeah, for me, like, say 180, yeah, that'd be a great goal. But, so now I get to 180, and now I realize, oh shit, and I'm not in the mindset I'm at now, right? You're like starting off your journey. So you're fairly new. You don't have the maturity, right? If I get to 180, and then I realize, oh, this is hard to sustain. Oh, and then I gain 5 pounds, and I gain 10, and I gain 15. Where's my mindset going to be at 195 after wanting to get to 180 versus if I wanted to get to 175 or 180, but I was like, but 200 would be good because I would still feel good. I would still be able to do things I want to do. You know what I mean? Like, or I'm going to get to a more realistic goal, and then I'm going to stick fairly close to that because it's easier for me to do. Like, without that regain right away, because a lot of people experience that, like, oh, well, I've made it here, and then they come off a bit and they gain like that 15, 20 pounds that most people do. Gaining that without kind of expecting or knowing why can be so, like,
absolutely
crushing, like soul crushing, right? Like, I've been there. Like, the first time I lost the weight, remember I went from like 180, 185 to like once I got above 200 again, even, in my head, I was like, oh I'm above 200. I'm fat again. Like, what is happening? Yeah. And then that domino falls of like that mindset that you're in, and your body body and mind start to tell you, like, you got to get back to being fat because that's who we are.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And you're constantly chasing your own tail again, and you're asking yourself the age-old question of why me? Why is this happening? And how do we stop it? For me, I think a lot of the regain happened to me due to injury, right? So,
so tell that story a little bit.
Yeah, so I regained weight because I was saying this on the podcast that we had with Obese Beast, John. I did the bodybuilding show. I did summer shredding. I did the whole transformation thing. During that prep, I had lost an additional 50 pounds. So I did a 17-week prep, and I lost 50 pounds during that prep. And then somewhere in that timeline of right before getting on stage, had the back injury, found out I had a broken back, did the show, came home, had back surgery. So I'm recovering from surgery. I went from the day that I stepped on stage, I was 218. And then very quickly after back surgery, recovering from that, starting PT, right before getting back into lifting, I ballooned up to like 285. And I was miserable. I hated myself. I hated the way I looked. I hated the way I felt. Couldn't look at myself in the mirror. And a lot of old habits that I thought I had killed off slowly creep back into my life. And then I was just talking negatively about myself all the time, which is something that once you get into that trap, it's like then everything becomes a negative. You follow what I'm saying? So
100%.
why the regain happened for me was I obviously went from doing this whole bodybuilding prep, and I was, lifting 2 times a day, doing cardio 2 times a day, whatever my regimen was, to then having back surgery and not doing anything. Because again, I had 2 discs removed from my back. I was in a back brace at all times. I had to walk with a walker in the beginning. Like, it was rough. And what happens, right? You lean towards comfort. So not doing anything, mad at the world, right? Because it's the world's fault that I'm injured. It's not my fault I'm injured. And we turn to those comfort foods, and those comfort foods just build up, and the activity level's gone. And of course the weight is going to come back, right? It's just logical that the weight is going to come back. But for some reason, we look at it and we're almost like shocked, right? Like we're almost surprised that this has happened. But if it's just the math is mathing. You're not in the caloric deficit anymore. You're not burning calories. You're in a surplus. And the reason why I got out of that and I lost the weight again after that is because I had to look at myself. One, I had to get cleared to do physical activity again. That was the main one for me. And then 2, once that happened, I had to stop throwing myself a pity party, right? Because I think when you have a regain, you have 2 options. You either throw the pity party, or you look at yourself in the eye and you say, okay, stop being a bitch. Party's over. Back to work. Right. And that's just it for me. Right. Like, not everyone can say that, but for me.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I think it's important for there to be a level of acceptance, but it's like accept and then what, not accept and do nothing.
Correct.
Right. Like one of my, we were just talking about a book by Jocko before this, Jocko Willink. But he has another thing that he's popular for where he's like, oh, I injured my back. Good. Because now what? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I lost 10 grand. Good. Because now what am I going to do?
Right.
It's like good because it's given me an opportunity to show up and do something different or better or learn or get shit done, like you said. So like, stop being a bitch. That might be a mentality. Not everyone is.
No, of course.
That's not the mentality that works for everyone. But I think what's important is even if you're not being hard on yourself, but you're like in the place of like accepting it and be like, well, this, don't fall into the trap of, okay, well, this is the hand I got dealt. I got injured. So, weight gain is just going to happen.
Correct.
That's not where the idea stops.
Right.
Where the idea stops is this is going to happen. I've accepted it. But what am I going to do when I need to get back to work and do the stuff? What am I going to do? Make a plan.
Yeah.
Right. So when it comes to it, like, get your mind right and then make a plan. Like, I think what people mistakenly do, and this goes back to just regain in general, when you are at your end goal, a lot of people get there and go, well, what now?
Correct. Yes.
Dude. And like the more opportunity you give your brain to not have a plan is when it just goes, okay, well, we'll just go back to what we know. Right? If there's no plan forward, the automatic plan that gets put into your subconscious and that you just keep doing is what you're used to.
Yep.
Right? And what you're used to, you'd think that even if you took a year to lose weight, that, oh, well, those habits aren't like ingrained anymore. It takes a long time for your brain to change than it does for your body.
Hell yeah.
And so if your brain is still in that, like, I see myself as fat, or I still see the old me, it's because like your brain is still identifying as that person. And so when you get to that point at the end and you're like, what do I do now? Your brain's like, I know what to do. I know what we can do. We can go back to eating and feeling good.
Exactly.
Because when you eat that good stuff, you feel really great about yourself in the moment.
And when you say good stuff, you really mean bad stuff. Just
yes. Yeah. I mean the bad food, the stuff that makes you feel good for a second. And as soon as you're done, you go, oh no, what have I done?
Yeah.
Dude, because that's the realistic part of it, right? Like, people don't eat bad foods because it feels crappy. Like,
oh yeah,
I don't know whoever thought, like, yes, afterwards you don't feel so great, like your body,
but you get over it.
But some people might be so consistently eating bad they don't even realize that they don't feel good.
Correct. Yes.
But in the moment, man, like eating a large pizza feels great.
Of course it does.
It was fantastic. Every bite, bro.
Yeah.
Like, people probably listening to this like, Danny, chill. That's not.
No, but it's
that.
true.
But it's real. And so, like, you have to remember that what you're used to for the majority of your life is not going to just change in a year or two.
Correct.
And it shows in the people that are on this journey that fall back into who they used to be, is because it's so easy. It's so easy to just want to eat the stuff that makes you feel good when times are tough. It's so easy to go back to the person you were because you don't have a plan for moving forward.
Right.
You know?
Right. Absolutely. And I mean, I think people put things on a pedestal, right? So like, I think it's normal for people to look at someone, let's just say, I'm going to use myself as an example, but I'm going to pretend that I'm not me for a second, right? So like, me as the example, I lost the weight. I started my weight loss journey 9 years ago. You know, I've kept the weight off consistently for such a long time at this point that people look at me and they think that I don't fall into these bad habits anymore, or like they don't exist for me anymore. But like, you know, recently I was traveling to Nashville, and I'm walking, you know, to my gate, and I realize I want every piece of food that I could get my hand on. And then I had this conversation with myself, and I posted a story about it that day. But there's just like something, for some reason, that I equate with traveling or going to the airport and calories not counting. And I don't know where that mindset came from or whatever, but like I found myself in a Hudson News store looking at candy bars, and like, yeah, I'll have a candy bar every now and again, but not like a Reese's in my hand, a cookies and cream bar in my hand, and a Snickers, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go on a flight, so it's okay. Like that's an old habit that reared itself out for no reason, because it was just never addressed. But there's so many old habits that you could get into that you don't realize that are gonna create this destruction path.
Yeah. No, 100%. 100%. Like I said, like if as you know, it's not even when you don't have a plan. Sometimes, like at the end of the day, you know, I don't really like when people compare food addiction to like real addictions, but
yeah,
there are definitely some similarities in life. And I think one of them is like you're gonna have like a relapse in quotations when you least expect it. Like you're gonna have times where you're like, whoa, I thought I dealt with this, or I didn't even know about this, and all of a sudden, you know, you're trying to figure out different ways to rationalize, you know, going off track.
Yeah.
So like I said, like not only is at the end of the day, from all the first part of this, at the end of the day, weight loss is a lifelong journey.
Yes.
Like for some it is just already ingrained in them to do what they have to do to maintain the body at the weight that they're at and the health that they're at. For some of us, I think that struggle that's not as natural. That doesn't come as natural to us. And so rather than just being like, oh, well, accept that and deal with and do nothing about it, you know, it's about accepting it and making a plan to achieve what you want to achieve and to maintain it. And then once you're maintaining it, making new goals along the way, having consistent goals that you're striving towards. Because if, like I said, if you don't have that plan, your natural selection is going to go right back to where you were. And so you guys might be listening to this and being like, well, Danny, how can you talk about this when you've, you know, gained all your weight back? And that's true. And that's my story, is that, you know, like I lost the weight in a time of my life when I was on ADHD medication and I was young and immature, and weight loss to me was mainly vanity. Like it was mainly how I looked, and it was little about how I felt. And when I finished, I was in a bodybuilding mindset. So I was like, my goal is I'm going to start gaining muscle. And so that's gaining weight. And you're playing with fire there.
Yes.
Like you're playing with fire when you're having to purposely put yourself in a surplus before you've even done the work on your mentality to try and maintain this weight loss. So the reality is coming off of ADHD medication that affected my appetite, and then just not having a plan, not having done the work mentally that I needed to do, that's what led to my weight gain. You know, I just, over the next years after that, you know, COVID, different life scenarios hit, and it was probably the most difficult 3 years of my life. And what did I do? I filled my freaking face because I had not done the work that I needed to.
Right.
The difference between that time and this time for me is that like I'm focusing on those things that I didn't before. The mindset differences, the how I feel versus just how I look, right? Looking is great. You know, it's always going to be a motivator. Just today I posted a video about I saw myself in the mirror and I was like getting excited. But when I was younger, I would like stop myself almost from getting excited because I was like, I have so much more work to do.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But like it's important to accept those little successes, but then, like I said, accept, plan, and keep moving forward. It's not accept and stop.
Right.
Like I think a lot of people get confused with that. It's like you can accept where you're at, accept your body, accept you for you.
Yeah.
That's important. That shouldn't be something that I'm never going to promote on this podcast. Beat yourself up to lose weight. It's not going to fucking happen. Okay? Because there's a difference between accepting where you are and stopping and accepting and moving forward. So like for me, I accepted the fact that I feel like I'm making progress and I see myself in the mirror and I look and feel great, but I know I have so much work to do. Am I going to let that stop me? No, I'm accepting it, using that motivation to plan and keep killing it moving forward. And for me, like I am so confident that after the GLP-1 that I'm using, I'm going to be able to still maintain this weight loss because I am making it my sole purpose to not have GLP-1 as like my identity. Like we're talking about it and we're using it. Well, I am.
Yeah.
And you know, we're talking about this on this podcast, but if you notice when I talk about it, it's like I'm using it and that's the end of it, because the reality is it's helping me make the good choices I need to make, but I'm still having to make those fucking choices.
Well, yeah, I think that comes down to it being a tool, right? Because I sit here and I say the same thing about bariatric surgery, right? Like, yes, it is very much my identity right now on social media because of the fact that I'm working with New York Bariatric Group and all that is fine and dandy. But if you go back and you look at my Instagram, there is years where I did not talk about bariatric surgery. I wouldn't put like the hashtag VSG. I wouldn't do any of that because to me, it was like, yes, I use this tool to help me. But at the end of the day, I was still in the driver's seat and I was still making the decisions. Like, because again, just like, just like you just said, like, yeah, I could have the piece of chocolate cake. I decided not to. That was my conscious decision, you know? So I'll never sit here and be like, yeah, your identity forever now is you're Danny, you're the GLP-1 guy, or I'm John, I'm the gastric sleeve guy. Like, to me, that's stupid because then we're giving way too much power to these tools, way too much power, you know. And once you give up that control yourself and you put it onto something else, guess what? You're gonna sit there all day long and you're gonna play the blame game on that thing. Well, I couldn't lose weight because the surgery didn't work. I couldn't lose weight because the shots didn't work, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. No, for sure. And at the end of the day, like the things that are going to help you maintain are, like I said, the physical habits that you put into play. But man, like I am a different person mentally right now than I even was 2 years ago, but completely different than I was 9 years ago when I lost my weight initially.
Absolutely.
Like, one, it's just maturity in life, right? But secondly, it's like I had a lot of shit that I needed to go through and like work on. And it took me a long time to realize that. You know, those things were in the back of my mind bringing me down all the time. And so when there was nothing else helping me, I had no plan other than to eat my feelings away. There was no other option. There was no solution. Like I didn't give myself an opportunity to succeed at all because I wasn't even thinking about another option.
Correct.
I was just like, this is what I'm struggling with. This is what sucks. What do I do about it?
Yeah.
You know? So like for me, like the biggest change has been to put that effort into changing the things that I know that I need to work on.
Right.
And so for some people, that first step is like what those things are. And sometimes life takes its time to kind of let you know. Like you're not just going to know right away. One day you're going to have like a mini mental breakdown and be like, oh shit, this is what John and Daddy were talking about.
And that's how it happens. You know what I mean? I really do.
But going back, like good, because now you know,
right?
And now you can work on it. And like that's been the biggest thing for me is like, yes, obviously the GLP-1's helping, but I also don't think I've ever given myself the best opportunity to succeed, not only just like achieving the weight loss, but also like maintaining it, because this is just beginning. Like I have another year or so of working on this. And during that time, I'm going to be consistently doing these things. Like the book I was telling you that I'm reading before this, like I'm going to therapy, like all these things are meant to shift my mentality to what I want in life and turning me into the person that I want to be. And so the person I want to be is not where I'm at right now.
Correct.
And I know that, but I never used to tell myself that. Like I never used to think that mattered. And for some people, they're probably listening to this, they're like, this guy is freaking hokey pokey. But
no,
like this is slowly changing my life, like it has for everyone that I've heard it from.
Absolutely.
Like, you know, obviously we hear a lot of these like gurus and mentors online that talk about this stuff all the time. So it almost puts like a sour taste in your mouth. But trust me, when you meet that mentor that is able to talk to you in a way that like, you know, there's no benefit to them.
Correct.
Like they're just like telling you how it is. And they also have the results to prove it. Like I hope to be like my goal in this weight loss community. My mentor is the guy I work for. And he has gone from a person that would just be living life, you know, an accountant, to like a multimillionaire, successful, like great father, like the person I aspire to be, right? And so he has a goal that he wants to achieve. That is, he wants to help 1 million people like be financially free by the time he dies. For me, like I want to be the example of like what this type of work leads to in success in the weight loss community.
Amen.
And not to like just be like, oh, I'm going to sell my coaching one day. Like that's not what the fuck it's about. It's like I want to be able to be like, hey, I lost it, I gained it, and I lost it again, and I maintained it because I did these things differently.
Yeah.
And like now I want to share, and that's why I'm sharing my entire journey. Is like the point of it is to share the things along the way, but I'm slowly picturing what I want to do in this space and who I want to be. And I'm like working towards that consistently every day.
Absolutely.
And so I think for you and your journey, for listening to this, like it's a constant battle to not only plan what you want, but also see that person at the end and see when you're finished, what that's going to look like, what's your life going to look like, because that'll help you make the plan.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you know what you want and who you want to be at the end, you know that's what kind of lifestyle you're going to need to achieve that. And so then it's just putting that plan into action and writing it down. But the first step is if you don't know those things that you struggle with, or you don't even know who you want or what you want, like you need to start answering those questions, because that is going to help. You don't have to do it now. You can do it along your journey. It doesn't have to be like, you don't have to do those things before you start, but along the weight loss journey, if you want to put yourself in the best position possible to maintain weight loss, you need to know who and what you want.
Yeah, and I mean, you're not going to get to where you want to go until you truly realize that you're doing this work for you, right? Like, because there's tons of us who start and stop again this journey because we're doing it for some outside force, right? Whether it's a family member, a spouse, a younger sibling, whatever the case may be, even a child. And I think if you're a parent and you're doing it because you want to, see your children grow old, you want to be able to get on the floor and play with your kids, that's incredible and hats off to you. But at the same time, if you don't really have that real serious conversation with yourself, that you're, at the end of the day, you're doing it for you and your own health, you're not going to see the results that you want to get to. And also, like, having that goal, like Danny was saying earlier in the podcast, having that why you're doing this, that is allowed to change multiple times during this journey.
Oh, dude, 100%.
When I started,
that's good.
Yeah, when I started this weight loss journey, I'll be honest with you, my goal was not a number on the scale, ever. My goal was to join wrestling school and to be healthy enough to have the confidence to join a wrestling school and to start my professional wrestling journey. And that was it. That was my focus. The blinders were on just for that. And I didn't care what the numbers said, And then once I got there, that goal changed again, and it changed again, and it changed again. And even to this day, like, my goal is so different than day one of this journey. And I feel like if it doesn't change, you get lost in the mundane, just like you can only dangle the carrot for so long before you get tired of the carrot. You know what I mean? Like, one day you're just gonna be like, this is not enough. Oh, great. I want to lower my pant size. Okay. That's going to get boring after a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. I, once again, like, I've learned all this stuff from my mentor, but visualizing like what you want deeply is very important. And a great example that I thought of in the car ride that we were on is you need to visualize what you want so deeply that you need to visualize it like the song Rockstar by Nickelback. The song Rockstar by Nickelback is a perfect example of how to visualize what you want. How you gonna do it?
Yeah.
I'm gonna trade this life for fortune and fame. I even cut my hair and change my name.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. Because, like, that whole song literally is Chad Kroeger telling, like, detailed and I don't recommend that life, but He's telling in a very detailed way exactly who he wants to be, what he wants to do,
Right.
how he's going to get there. And it's, it's like, I want a house that's on an episode of Cribs with a bathtub that I can play baseball in.
Yeah.
Like, that's extremely detailed. That's not like, I want a new house.
Right.
I want to be able to buy a house one day. He's like, I want to buy a house. This is what I want to do in it. This is what the bathtub is going to look like. This is what I'm like. You need to visualize your goals and your life as detailed as that song.
I mean,
So-
I truly believe in manifesting things. Like I really do feel like that's a real thing, which is kind of like what you're saying right now without saying it. I really feel like the more you talk about and visualize and almost make it that you could touch it, the realer it's going to be. So like, always talk about your goals. I think that like anyone who has began this journey and they're afraid to tell people what their goals really are, like you're only doing yourself a disservice. I would scream it from the fucking mountaintop. You know what I mean? Because it's just going to make it more part of your reality. And the more you do that, the more you realize these things are coming your way. Like you almost are this magnet and everything is just attracted to you. And everything you say, you're going to attract that thing. So one of my terrible habits that I've noticed that I'm going through right now is I have a really good job of not being able to take compliments. Like I am the worst at it. And when someone gives me a compliment, I automatically will be like, yeah, but I'm a jerk off, or I'm a loser, or like whatever. Like, oh, it's not that big of a deal because at the end of the day, I'm just like this idiot. You know what I mean? And someone very close to me had to take me to the side the other day because I did this in a meeting with some important people. And they took me to the side after this meeting and they were like, listen, dude, like, I love you. You're incredible. And everyone in this room knows that you're incredible. You need to know that you're incredible yourself, because this whole I'm this, I'm that after someone gives you a compliment thing, you're going to turn into that unintentionally. And I had that realization of like, holy shit, like every time because I'm the type of person, I'll get good things in my life. And then I'll be the type of person who'll be like, yeah, but the other shoe is going to drop. So something terrible is going to happen now. And I think Danny and I've had this conversation off air, but it's like the only reason why the other shoe drops is because I let the universe know that I want it to, you know? And this is not some like crazy astrology. Hey, Danny, what time were you born type thing? But like, you know, I truly believe that the universe is going to give you the things that you want when you ask it enough and you say that they're a part of your reality. Go chase it and change your goals constantly.
Yeah. Whether it be spiritual or religious, like scientifically, like there is proven things to show that we get what we think.
Yes.
Like they did this study with basketball players and 20 people shot free throws and 20 people visualized free throws going in. And they had the same results as far as how much better they got getting the free throws in. Like some people practiced, 20 people literally just visualized every training session instead of shooting. They visualized the ball going in, and they had similar results to how much their shot improved.
Absolutely. That's why Michael Jordan knows he's the GOAT and LeBron thinks he's the GOAT.
Dude, if you pay attention to sports and like if you hear any elite athlete talk about how they've had success, it is never, oh, this coach taught me this one thing. Oh, I actually do this training drill every day. No, every single one of them, dude, in these press conferences, whatever, every single one of them say like, I told myself I was a champion since I was 5 years old.
Right.
I have visualized this moment since I was in college. It's all visualization. It's all like, I don't see any other option except success.
Correct.
And they don't tell themselves that just in front of the camera. They are telling themselves that and working on that every single day. Right? And we don't need to be elite athletes to maintain weight loss.
No.
You know what I mean? Like all we need to do is change our habits to healthier ones and just start fucking loving yourself a little bit more.
Amen. And don't be afraid to celebrate those small wins. Like I tell people that all the time. We for some reason we feel like we only have to celebrate these huge wins, but like celebrate the itty bitty stuff. Oh, I drove past, I walked past the bakery section in the supermarket today when I was getting all my stuff for meal prep. Celebrate that. If that's something that used to bring you down and you had to stop in the bakery section and grab something just because, and today you didn't, self high five. Like, go in the car and be like, wow, I'm a fucking champion. Like, I did it. And guess what? I bet you it rolls over into the next time.
Yeah. No, people think that's going to be like, oh, well, you're going to take your foot off the pedal because you're celebrating success.
No.
We're not saying celebrate a success by going and like getting, a cheap meal.
Oh, yeah, no.
It's like, oh, you're doing the work.
No.
That's very easy to get caught up into.
Yeah.
I've definitely done that in the past, and I don't do that now.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when I have a meal that's off, I just freaking have the meal. Like, I don't think of it as a cheap meal. I don't think of it this or that. It is what it is, and I accept it, make a plan, move forward.
Yep.
Because if you are always having like a reward every time you're successful, when those rewards stop, when they stop feeling like rewards, because they will,
Yes.
things like your dopamine response to the same thing over and over doesn't just stay the same. Like, you are going to eventually be like, oh, well, this one cheat day is not enough for me to feel good. So how do I feel good though? Because that's what I'm focusing on. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yep.
Then all of a sudden that cheat meal turns into a cheat day. Then it turns into a cheat weekend. And then you're just eating like shit because it feels good.
Yep. And then you're cheating on fat.
And you're right back to where we all started.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's so easy to fall back into where you started because it's what we're like. We wouldn't have an issue if this wasn't where we like were ingrained to be. Like,
yeah.
That's the reality. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, we kind of covered a lot of the physical and mental, which is honestly is more of, for maintaining, I think it's way more mental than it is physical. Losing weight is like a mix of both,
yeah,
for sure. I would say it's like maybe 60-40, 55-45 physical, mental. But like maintaining weight loss is like 70 mental and like 30 physical.
Yeah.
Because you're already there. You've done it.
You did it. Yeah.
Right?
How do we keep it?
Now it's like, how are you going to do to maintain it? And like, that's where the mentality, those weaknesses and that lack of planning and all the things you're struggling with in life, like that's where those things come up, because you don't have a goal anymore. You don't have that consistent success feeling. You don't have that constant motivation anymore from seeing the progress.
Right.
Like, all those things are carrying you along the way, but once you maintain it, you don't have all those.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to create them.
Yeah.
But for those who are this is late to get into this, but for those that are on a journey and you're fearing gaining weight, I will say that it's very easy for that to become like a self-sabotage way of thinking.
Absolutely.
Like, why lose the weight? I'm going to gain it back anyways.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that I've definitely had people message me about. Like, hey, I'm really excited. I really want to do this. But there's this thought that I have that, like, what's the point? Because so many people gain the weight back. And so, like, if I lose and gain the weight back, I'm just going to feel worse off. I'm going to gain more weight than I lost.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why? Like, how do you stay motivated? And because it's like, I'm not focused on that.
Yeah.
I was for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And what helped me not be is, like I said, like, when I'm focused on the life I want to live and how I want to feel,
right,
rather than just physical, I have so many whys and reasons to maintain it than I did before. So if you have a simple reason to lose the weight, then that mindset of like, well, what's the point anyways, is much easier to have because you don't have as much pushing you forward. Not only that, but I mean, who cares really? Like, you have so much time between you and the goal that if you're listening to this and you're going to take, and by the way, listen to this and do something. Don't just listen to this and like, oh, that felt good.
Yeah.
Make a plan for yourself. If you're listening to this right now, like, take action, because if you're listening to this and you're on a journey and you're feeling these feelings, like, you're already putting yourself in a better situation, because now you have something to do to like help you not focus on that, because you have a whole year or 2 years or 3 years or 6 months, whatever your goal is and whatever time frame you're going to achieve that in. Like, you have that amount of time to work on the stuff and work on that mindset of fear.
Yeah.
Because you're going to experience it at the first, and that's normal. But like, what are you going to do about it along the way? And so for a few things to do about it, like I said, I gave the one of like creating deep whys, because those are going to push you to maintain that weight. But what was it for you, John, that helped you? And I mean, this is something, it still comes up once in a while for sure. Like, I'm there's a little thought in the back of my mind that like, oh, I could do this again and again and all back again. But
Oh, you're asking me what pushes me to not regain?
when you feel that like, if you're ever like, oh, like, you know, that one, like sometime I could regain this weight back. Like it's always, you know.
For me, I mean, and I don't like saying this a lot, but a big part of it for me is fear-based. And I don't want anybody on this journey to have that why to be fear-based. But this is just for me because, like, I was at death's door. You know what I mean? Like, I remember those feelings. I remember those emotions. I remember those smells. I remember those sounds. And I remember what it felt like to beg God and the universe and whatever for another chance. And I never want to be there ever again. I took my life very much for granted. And when I tell people, like, I don't feel like I'm supposed to be here, I'm not saying that to get a couple extra likes on a piece of content. I'm saying that because it's the truth. Like, and so sometimes that fear base of just knowing where I started and never wanting to ever be there ever again is enough for me. And it, you know, obviously that has quickly turned into like, now I'm doing it not just for myself, but for so many people out there, because like Danny said before, like he wants to be that mentor, that inspiration when it comes to this weight loss thing, like can do it. That's me too. Right. Like, cause my whole thing was always like, if I felt the way that I felt back then, there's not a shadow of a doubt in my mind that there's some other version of me out there that feels the same way. So like what I do is for that other version of John Arpino, wherever he may be, because I know he's out there.
Yeah. Can I tell you something too, though? I don't think that mindset is baked in fear only, because here's the reality, right? Like we all have role models in a physical as well as mental, like what we want, right? And everyone thinks of role models as someone who shows you the right things to do.
Correct.
Role models can also be an example of what not to do.
Amen.
So your role model for you was yourself back then.
Right.
Like it's not, yeah, it's fear of like, I almost died, so I can't gain the weight back. But at the same time, you had an example of what the life you didn't want to live.
Yeah.
Right? And like that is what drives you to be better.
Right.
So yeah, it's fear, but at the same time, it's an example of what you don't want.
Amen.
Role models cannot just be what you do want. They can also be an example of what, hey, that's not good.
Yeah.
And I know it's not good. And I'm never going to do it because I know that what that's going to lead me to. So give yourself some more credit for that, man, for sure.
Thank you.
You know,
I appreciate that.
You were on, you know, in a place where you knew like, this is the last straw. This is not where I want to be.
Yeah.
And you gave yourself a perfect example of what you didn't want. And then you switched it up and freaking did something about it.
Thanks, pal. Don't get me all emotional. I'm not crying on this podcast.
One day. But yeah, I think we're at that mark. This was a great one, man. Like I feel like this one's gonna change some lives.
Me too.
And at the end of the day, like I said, dude, this mental and identity stuff that I'm working on, and the reason is a huge reason. One of the reasons I moved to work with who I work with now, is because of that. Because I knew that like it's gonna level me up as a human.
Yeah.
Because I need like role model. Like we're talking about role models. Like I just knew that I connect well with this person, and I know that he's gonna say the right things to get me where I need to be, and like it's already happening. So when you are thinking about losing weight and regain, start thinking about who you are, what you want, the lifestyle that you want, why you want to achieve it. Like, and I don't mean just like, oh, well, I want to lose 5 pounds because I want to look better on the beach. Like, no, like I want to lose 100 pounds because I want to play with my daughter in the park. And when she kicks a soccer ball at me, I want to be able to run after that soccer ball, and I want to be able to pass it back to her and see her fucking smiling face, because that is where the you are gonna cry on the podcast, but I am. Dude, like when you can cause emotion from the things that you visualize, that's when your brain like locks it in, man. Like when you, like I could just saw my daughter's smiling face because her dad can freaking run around and play with her. Like that's where your life is going to shift, because there's an emotional reason for you to continue to work and do the things you need to do to get there. And for me, like, it's one of my biggest things. Like, I want to be a better dad. I want to go play with my daughter more. And I would just stop at that. And I would just lose that in the moments of where I was hungry. Like, I would just I always used to say, I have all this motivation, but like, I'm doing nothing with it. I have every motivation in the world to lose weight, but I'm doing nothing with it. It's not enough. Why is it not enough? Because I didn't make it enough.
Right.
Like, I'm making it enough now in my life because I'm making it so real. I'm visualizing exactly who I want to be and where I want to be and what I want to do. And that is like creating just a dramatic shift for me. And so I just like, I'm learning this stuff still. So I'm just sharing it out of excitement. And at the end of the day, when you guys know, if you're listening to this podcast, do whatever the frick you want to do.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest things I could say is just start caring more about what your goals really are and connect with them.
As cliche as it sounds, guys, always remember it all comes down to how bad you truly want it. Like, you might hear that all the time and you're like, oh, I really want it bad. But, you know, just look at Danny right now. Like, just the visualization of doing these things with his daughter, and his daughter's smiling face has brought him here to tears. You know what I mean? And there's things in your life that are being impacted right now because of the weight that you are or the lifestyle that you have right now that you're not realizing. So if there's anything that you do after you turn this podcast off, is please take a look at what's going on in your day-to-day life and point out the things that you want to change and why you want to change them, and start making the positive things to change them.
Yeah. Man, if you look back at my podcast with John in February, when I was with him, I was crying because I had all the motivation and I was failing.
Right.
Now I'm crying because I visualize it so much that it brings me emotion, because I know what my life's going to look like when I'm done this.
It's beautiful.
Think of the difference of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not because all of a sudden I'm just doing, like, you could be doing the work and not focusing on that stuff. But like, when you change your mindset, you're going to put your emotion and your direction in the right places and not give it to, like, before I was just crying because I was sad, like,
Right.
because I was upset, because I was failing, and because I felt like shit. And that's what I was feeding into.
Yeah.
Right. And it's easy to, but when you finally do the work and you start actually putting those plans in emotion, you know, now I'm crying because I know where I'm going to be, man. And like, I can't wait. So this has been an amazing one, guys. I hope you loved it. If you're watching this on Utah, baby. it's Utah, YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment below. Let us know what your plan for the next 30 days, detailed, is going to be. I want like 3 paragraphs. No, I'm just kidding. There's no word limit. This isn't school. But leave a comment below. In the next 30 days, I'm going to, and I want detailed descriptions of how much you want to lose, why, or what health thing you want to change. Like, it doesn't have to be just weight loss or weight pounds goal, but I want to feel better in this way and why, and go into detail. Like I said, listen to Nickelback, listen to Rockstar. It will show you how to visualize. I promise. All right, guys.
Guys, I appreciate it. No, I mean, I'm just letting you all know right now, like, when Danny reaches whatever goal that he has, I'm not just going to call him Daddy. Like, it's just not going to happen. So he needs to come up with a new nickname. So that's his homework, is come up with a new nickname, because I ain't calling you Sir Daddy. I ain't calling you Muscular Daddy. I ain't calling you Danny Daddy. Like, so you better come up with a moniker real quick.
All right. Stay sweet, baby.
Be good, mama.
Stay healthy, stay sexy, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Be good. Peace.